Howdy, folks. Welcome to another episode of The Inciting Incident. I'm your host, Tim Shields. I don't need to tell you at this point what The Inciting Incident is all about. So a little background on my next guest. In probably 2021, I got introduced to the senior vice president of the literary department at William Morris Endeavor. And I was like, oh my God, this is my big break. And I wrote this totally 5D consciousness forward letter to this guy, and it's Hollywood. And of course, they're not going to get it. Spent a couple days writing this letter, was kind of, a little bit bummed about the outcome. And I shook it off after a couple hours and I just said out loud, all right, show me what's better. The next day or a couple hours later, during this time, the Clubhouse app was really popular during COVID. And I saw our mutual friend, Alan Steinfeld, on it. So I decided to just pop on. And he introduces me, and I wind up talking to Kimberly, who's on the app. And she says, oh, I have a book coming out on Hay House. Can I talk to you offline? So I wind up talking to Kimberly. And at the end of the conversation, she's like, you should meet my literary agent. And I was like, well, I'm kind of, waiting for a big one. I didn't know anything about this literary agent, who is a legend, Bill Gladstone. And I finally say, okay, I'll get introduced to him. So I go for a hike. By the time I come back, he's already reached out. He wants to talk to me the next day. The rest is history. So Kimberly Meredith, let me get to her bio here. Kimberly Meredith is a world-renowned medical intuitive trance channeler, hands-on healer, and spiritual teacher. Her extraordinary abilities emerged after 2 near-death experiences in 2013, which she described as encounters with the Holy Spirit that granted her miraculous gifts. In her best-selling book, Awakening to the Fifth Dimension, Kimberly offers guidance on elevating consciousness and achieving deep healing through practical methods, case studies, and testimonials. Her abilities have been scientifically validated by institutions like the SciTech Subtle Energy Lab and the Institute of Noetic Sciences. Kimberly hosts the Medical Intuitive Miracle Show on KCA Radio and iHeartRadio and is a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM and other media platforms. Featured in Harper's Bazaar, Vietnam, Women's Fitness, and LA Yoga magazine, she shares healing messages from the other side to bring comfort and insight to people and animals alike. Kimberly loves communicating with those on the other side to bring healing messages to all who need comfort and insight. She provides readings, healings, and guidance to adults, children, and animals. Kimberly, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited about being here.
I love this topic because I have a very special connection to it. I remember probably 18, 21, reading my first book about near-death experiences, and I became super fascinated about it. And then after my dad passed away, of all places to learn about this, I found this article in Rolling Stone, and I started following the breadcrumbs, and I went down the path to Dr. Melvin Morris, and then I learned about IANDS, which is International Association of Near-Death Experiences. So I used to go once a month and just sit in the back of these meetings after my dad passed away because it gave me some, healing to hear about all of these people's experiences from the other side. And I would just sit there and listen to all these stories. So now I get to talk to somebody who actually has had 2 near-death experiences. So I usually start the same question. So who were you? Where were you? And did you have any idea what you wanted to do with your life when you were 17 years old?
Wow. That's a great question. Gosh, when I was 17, I was into dancing, and I was in a dance group. And I remember my stepmother, who was born in Guadalajara, and she was really into high level education. And she thought when I got out of high school that I would go straight into college. And I was into just dancing. And I said, she asked me, she goes, what are you going to do, with your life? And I remember getting ready to get out of, high school. I said, I want to be a dancer. And she said, that's not a profession. You're not going to be a dancer, Kimberly. And I said, but I love dancing. I feel angels around me. And when I dance, and I a pretty good dancer. And I tried out for this dance group that was going, I was ballet for a pretty big dance company in New York. And, but she was like, no, you don't become a dancer.
So did you always kind of have this connection to angels, guides, etc.?
I did. I was born where I had the unusual blinking that was going on with my eyes at the age of 6 months old. And my paternal grandfather was good friends with a very famous director. They would build yachts in Catalina. And he had told him, my granddaughter has these fluttering eyes going on. And she is also talking about dead people. And she's saying that she sees, mother who is crossed over and things like that. So he bought my grandfather a 8mm camera, and he has all this footage of me when I was little. And I was writing little notes down on paper, talking about subjects like the afterlife and stuff, who I was seeing and things, and hiding them in the house and saying to my grandmother, don't die. She had asthma that was really bad. And I would also do things like rub my hands together and heal.
At what age?
This was going on from 6 months old to like 9 years old, around 8, 9 years old. I was doing things like this. So.
And did your family or people try to shut that down? Because I hear that often. They're like, well, this is weird. This child's weird. Don't do that in public.
Yeah, my paternal side of the family was fine with it, but my maternal side, my mother had an issue with it. It was freaking her out. She was getting really scared about it. She didn't understand it. And so she would often reprimand me to stop.
Interesting. I want to get to your mother, but first, let's take me to your first near-death experience.
So as I went on as an adult, I got really into healthcare. I remember at a young age, like, my God, like around 14 or 15 years old, I said, Mommy, I want to work at the hospital. So I started working as a candy striper, and then went into being into the admitting, and then went into getting my nursing, certified nursing jobs. And
what's a candy striper?
It's like a volunteer.
Okay, at a hospital, you bring around candy and stuff like that?
You help them, you help admit patients to the hospital, and you're doing anything you can just to help.
Okay, so there's not actually candy involved.
No, they're just called candy strippers.
Okay, because I'm like, that would be perfect for the medical institution, for hospitals to give candy to people who are sick. Yeah. So pretty much my whole entire life, since 15 till I had my NDE, I've always worked in the medical community in the hospital. So worked from oncology to trauma units. And I've always been very proactive in medical fields, where I've worked on all these different floors. I have a lot of medical knowledge. I'm those kind of nurse assistants, LVN, that would, when they say you're coded, I would say, I was always have a lot of energy where I would say, no, they're not coded. Let's go for it more. Let's keep them going, So I happened to, leading up to the NDEs, throughout my life, I had run into, I live in Los Angeles, and there's a lot of entertainment going on here, the capital of entertainment. One day I was working on a floor, trauma unit floor. A nurse was working in television. She was a medical technical advisor. And she said, you'd be really great working on a television show as an on-camera actress. And what they do is also set up the shots for the shows, making them look as real as possible. Mm-hmm. I said, I don't know how to do that. And she says, oh, come on, you'd be great. Let's just come on. So I went on one day, and it was really intense and fast paced, say some lines, but you also have to set up the shots to look as real as possible, having cardiac arrest and everything like that. And I was like, wow, I got a paycheck for doing this and saying a few lines. And so that spun into over a decade of work
where I was doing tons of shows, but also I never left my job at the hospital. I always was doing 14-hour shifts, and then 14-hour shifts at the shows. It's a lot. So I worked like this double life. And then in 2012, leading up to this, my grandmother, who is my heart and soul, she was admitted to a senior home for Alzheimer's. And at the same time, I got my big break in Hollywood, where I became the medical consultant and actually writing on the show and director consultant on the show and actor on the show of this big show that hit in Los Angeles. Director, writer of, can't remember, Scrubs also.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know Scrubs.
Yeah. Yep.
And they wanted to investigate how to make it look as real as possible. And they went to my grandmother's senior home. It was about senior living and all that. And I started to really see a big shift in my career as a medical director, consultant, and writer. And so basically what happened was that I was really excited about this whole thing, but didn't leave my job. So what was happening was that I should have heard Spirit say, slow down. And a lot of people, when they read the Awakening Fifth Dimension book, go, oh my gosh, I can relate to this because I'm taking on way too much. They picked me up to go to the set on this one day, and I will never forget it, of course. I was hit by a Cadillac Escalade, which is a very big car.
Yeah.
And I was taken out.
Okay. So what happened? Were you pronounced dead on the scene or in the hospital?
No. What happened was that I had a blunt head trauma that was so bad from that Escalade. I should have gone to the hospital right then. But because of my soul contract, not wanting to let go of that big
break.
Yes.
Yeah.
I said, no, take me to the set. So I went to the set, very sick. I was throwing up and vomiting. And I didn't want to let it go because where I'm from and how I came into this world was always this working and helping. And my mother was always having struggles, and she died young, and I lost my father young too. So I've always had to provide for myself. So I was like, I'm not going to give this up. I'm not going to give this up. So I made it through the day, but I didn't make it for very long because 2 days after I collapsed, I was rushed to the emergency room. And by the time I got to the emergency room, I was living with my partner. They told him she's going to die. And when they rushed me through, I was already losing my kidney and other parts of my organs. And then by the time I got on the table, I coded.
Wow. So what happened?
Then I, of course, multiple seizures. They were, trying to bring me back. I remember looking over when that happened to the blood pressure thing. And I remember just looking over and looking at him, and it kind of just went like that, where I lost my full blood pressure out. And then I went up, and I remember seeing immediately, which I never recalled until after I told my aunt, I saw a woman come right at me really fast. And she's darker skinned because I know I don't look it, but my grandmother from my paternal side was born in Genoa. My mom's full-blown Italian. And then the other side, Sicily. But it was my grandmother from Sicily, darker Italian. And she came right at me. And she's a shaman. And she was very prominent in Italy as a healer. She came right at my face. I guess just right at me. And she
let me ask you a quick question. Did you go through like a tunnel of light, or are you outside of your body?
Yeah, I didn't go through any tunnel, but I was completely above myself.
Okay.
And I could feel everybody working on me. And then she came at me right away. And then I saw lots of purple flowers all around me, but that I did see. And I still know what that means. The purple flowers.
Do you want to share that?
yeah, the representing my guide now I have, which is my stepmother, who always would save me from a lot of things as a child. So she appeared because she's on the other side. And then I felt the Holy Spirit come through my body. And then when the Holy Spirit came through, there was nothing like it. It was so unbelievable. Just came through, but also whispered to my ears, the left ear, you're going to stay. And my consciousness kept saying, I don't want to. I want to stay with you. And it kept coming back at me so hard and pushing on my chest. And it was a blast of light coming right through my eyes. And it just was like, boom. And I kept saying, get off of me, get off of me, because it was hurting my chest so bad. And it kept the light that came through my eyes. It was like, kept saying to me, you're here to stay. You're here to stay. It was a whisper, and it goes in my left ear. And today is where I get all my communication, through the left ear. And then my eyes, the way they flutter, started fluttering again back, but it was happening. I could feel it like when I was laying down, and then it went back up like that. And then I came back in like that.
So I have 1,001 questions, but now let's just fast forward and take me to your next near-death experience.
Yeah. Just one quick thing after that.
Yeah.
So when I experienced that, I did not have any of the eye blinking like I did when I was a child. Like the blinking started coming back after that. So when I was little, I had the blinking, then it left for all those years. And then after the experience of the Holy Spirit, they started communicating. But after I came back and I was at the hospital, a mess. They say, and I remember, I did not have any communication. I couldn't speak for almost 2 months. I was there. So continuing. So 2 months, they would not release me. I couldn't walk, but I could blink through the blinking. And by the time I left to go home, I was in the wheelchair. When I drove home with my significant other in the car, he looked at me and he said, are you okay to talk? Are you going to talk? And I kept barely talking, but I was starting to blink. Then when I came home, I was in the bedroom, 90 pounds. I went from 35, 40 to 90 pounds. I believe, and I know the Holy Spirit saved my life, came through, brought the blinking back, the communication of God through me. And it was just unbelievably remarkable.
So when were you able to actually start talking? And so you're like locked in yourself for 2 months.
Yeah, at the hospital, not able to communicate.
And when were you able, after the accident, to start actually speaking?
I started speaking, but the significant other didn't understand the new tone that is coming through, which is me starting to be a trance channeler.
Yeah. And
once I started speaking, I couldn't say words like hospital, like I say it now, was different than what I spoke before. And then friends of mine were like coming to the house and bringing me food. I had a nurse helping me learn to walk, physical therapy. And then it was apparent that I was not who I was before when I went in.
Wow. So, okay. We had so many questions here, but let's, so what year was, that was 2012. And then, so when was your next experience?
Then we go into 2013. I'm still in the wheelchair. I'm still recuperating. And then I had gone outside with my dog, who is an 80-pound American bulldog that I was told not to go outside with. I was too small, too weak. And I just took him out for a little bit out the front door because he needed a walk and the nurse wasn't here. And a man walked by that was like a gardener, not knowing. that Rocky is a fighter dog, and he still was being trained, and Rocky thought he was going to hurt us. And when he took the blower, Rocky lunged towards him because he thought it was going to come at us. And Rocky, when he did that, he threw me into the street, and I hit the back of my head right where I had surgery.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's either dumb luck or divinely appointed. So
that was divinely appointed, because when that happened, it blew me wide open. It blew it wide open.
So tell me more about that. Did you have another, did you have to go to the hospital and all that stuff?
I did. It blew it wide open. It was the full awakening. When that happened, it was, and Rocky was, I mean, right now when I talk about it, it's so hard to explain that there were people on the street, there were cars coming at me. And if you talk about heroic animals, I am an animal. Yeah, I'm an animal communicator also. I do animal communication. And he ran to me into the street, and he laid his body over me, and it opened up. The stitches in the back of my head were bleeding, and he laid his body over my body. And there were cars coming right after me, and I would have been completely gone. And he did not leave me until they came to get me.
Wow. So you went to the hospital and everything after that? Did you have another flatlining experience?
I did not have that, but they had to redo fluids and stitching and everything in my head again. But after that happened, there was no holds bar. All of the guides and angels and it was like having a complete trip above. Everything just blew out. Yeah. By the time I came home, I was a full-blown trancer. I was blinking and signing, and I was yeah. And Rocky was my guide. But the sad thing about it is Rocky was only 3 years old. I had rescued him from the ghetto, downtown LA. And I was not supposed to get a big bait dog, like fighter dog. I didn't know he was a fighter dog. I was supposedly going to get this really tiny little dog. And when I came home, I didn't know he had a tumor from being tied around a fence for so many years.
Oh my God.
And abused. His teeth were down, lodged in the back of his neck. And I had saved him. And my goal was, before I had the NDE, was to train him and all of this. And after he saved my life, I woke up one morning. My fiance had left after a year after that because he couldn't handle the whole awakening. I woke up in the morning, and I had, moving on with the story a little bit, I had gotten discovered in my home by many people finding out about my gifts. And I eventually got a Reiki table in my living room because many people had found out about me here. Rocky died next to my Reiki table.
Wow. He pretty much came into your life to ignite your gifts, and then his little soul contract work was done, and then you were on a new path.
Yeah.
So how does it evolve from people coming to your house to you being studied to you having, I guess you would call it a practice or a healing practice or something like that? How does that all evolve?
This is interesting. So it goes back to my nursing friends and Reiki and all that stuff. So I was on the couch with Rocky, and one of my friends was one of my onset RN friends, and she was into Reiki, and she was coming over visiting me after work. My ex was a guitarist and also an editor for television shows, and he didn't know what this was going on. You know, he's a normal guy. He doesn't know any of this stuff's happening. I'm blinking now, and she's coming over and rubbing her hands and doing Reiki on me. And we also found out about cold laser machines. So I was doing cold laser, anything to stop the pain. I was going to the pain center and nothing was working. When you have this sort of trauma to the brain and you have a stent and all this going on, they want you on a lot of medications. And I couldn't do the chiropractic and acupuncture. All that would not work. It was so much pain. So one day I just decided to throw it all away. So I flushed all the pain medications away. And I said to God, I don't want to go to the pain center anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. So I decided to start doing healing with my hands. I kept hearing a message in my ear. You can heal yourself. You can heal yourself. So I started just rubbing my hands together. And my partner that was here was like, what are you doing? This is not going to work. And my friend, Katie, she'd come over and we would rub our hands together and do the healing. And it started to work. And I kept hearing, you can heal yourself. And my eyes were blinking. And then I was using the cold laser machine and I was putting it on my neck and doing the cold laser. And I started hearing, I was raised half Jewish and Catholic. I was hearing the Hail Marys and the Our Fathers. And I was also hearing B'raka Atah Adonai, the Hebrew prayer. And I kept praying and praying. It started getting better and better. And then one day, my ex-agent came over and he said, what are you going to do with your life? I said, I don't know. I said, my partner has told me I have 2 weeks to stop blinking and to stop doing these naughty things. And he's going to leave me. And if I don't stop, I won't be able to stay here. And he says, I don't understand. So anyway, he had an issue with his ankle. He was going to go in for surgery for his Achilles heel.
Your partner or the agent?
No, the agent.
Okay.
And he had been an ex-football player. And he had a lot of friends down at Gold's Gym. And Gold's Gym is a workout place where everybody works out in LA. So anyway, I said, well, let me see if I can do a healing on you. So I rubbed my hands together and they were getting super hot. And that's how this all started. So way back, this is like around 2000, I think it was 15. And I rubbed my hands and this was just like a nonchalant thing to do because I was starting to get a little better. And I said the Hail Mary. And he wasn't real religious or anything. I said, this is not religious. This is just me saying a prayer and healing. And he said, okay. And so I said that and he left. So then and about a few days later, he called me up and he said, it worked. I said, what do you mean? And he goes, I went in and I got my scan and it didn't come back out. And I also did the laser on him. The laser was just like a few minutes. And he goes, I'm completely healed. The Achilles did not pop back out. The laser, I guess, kept it in. And your prayer. I said, oh. He goes, I'm going to send you some people from Gold's Gym. And you just need to get like a table and maybe you could do some healing on them. What was so interesting was that I wasn't doing the scanning yet, finding where things are in people's bodies. I wasn't like doing that yet. I was just doing like the healing. And what he did is he started sending some pretty well-known athletes over to my house. And it was so interesting because at the time, I didn't know the word, the fifth dimension. I didn't know 3D to 5D. I didn't know those words. They weren't telling me that yet in my left ear, but we were in the fifth dimension. And these people were coming over, these athletes, they had rotator cuff tears, they had meniscus tears. And I was putting my hands and I was going over them and I'd say you're healed. And they'd say, I'm healed. And they were healed. And then I would start going over their bodies. And then it started happening. Gradually, it was happening. I'd hear they have a hernia. I'd say, do you have a hernia here? And they say, I do. The guides were teaching me to be a medical intuitive. And then I would say, you have a breast lump here. And they'd say, okay. I said, go get it checked out. They'd come back and they'd say, I have cancer. I have a breast lump here and it's cancer, Kimberly. You found it. As this was happening, it was happening faster and faster to me. I got discovered. I had people from What's the Bleep come here. People from The Secret come here. I all of a sudden had 100 people coming into my apartment Then he comes walking down, my significant other, and he said, I'm moving out. When he said that to me, it was a huge wake-up call because I wasn't making any money. I wasn't charging anything.
Yeah.
But what happened was Spirit, Timmy, always comes through when God provides. And I said to him, God will provide for me. He said, no, you need to go back to where you were. And that reminded me of what my mom would say. You need to stop what you're doing.
Interesting.
And that's what I tell people. Always hear what you're meant to do. Within a week, a woman, he left, and I was heartbroken, but I heard God has you on a mission. A woman called me and said, I want you to come to Virginia and I'll pay for your rent and I'll pay your ticket to get here.
Where in Virginia?
It was a festival by Maryland, close to Edgar Cayce.
I was going to say, because that's where Edgar Cayce was. Does it have to do with Edgar? Did the person that brought you there have to do with Edgar Cayce?
Yes. And she was the first. Yes. Thank you. She was the first woman that said, do you know you're a medical intuitive? And I said, no, I don't. She goes, do you know you're channeling Edgar Cayce? I said, no, I don't know who Edgar Cayce is. She says, do a reading on me right now over the phone. And when I did the reading on her, I knew every single thing that was wrong with her in about 2 minutes. And she said, I'm going to pay for everything for you to get here. And I'll never forget what I said. I said, are you sure you want someone like me? I said, I pray to the Holy Spirit. I pray to Mary. And she said, we definitely want you to come here and do this.
So tell people who Edgar Cayce is.
He is a psychic that put himself into channel and would diagnose people's illnesses. And I do the same thing. I'm a trance channel, but I'm awake and I find the root cause, but I do healing on top of that.
Yeah. Edgar Cayce, I remember reading this book about him, and he was just this normal kid and terrible student. And he started sleeping with his books underneath his pillow. And then he would wake up and he would know all the information underneath in the book. And then he has a very similar story to you, where it just kind of happened and people just started coming to him. And I mean, he's come up with all of these, medical solutions, and he could go back to Atlantis. And there's many things in place today that came about as a result of Edgar Cayce. He was probably the most prolific channeler of the 20th century. I think that's fair to say. Yes. So what happens when you go down there?
When I went there, I took 2 people with me. I was still embarrassingly in the wheelchair going through the airport. Couldn't walk through because the activation of airports bothered me. But once I get there, I'm fine. I had an amazing time. I did my channeling and found root cause information through many people. And then the hands-on healing, we healed multiple people there. It was amazing. By the time I got home, it blew up. I got back to Los Angeles and I was in a lot of the expos. And then I got calls for office spaces. People were offering me. So I got an office, which I was really excited about. Mm-hmm. So someone said, would you like to have an office? I said, yeah, I think that's a good idea. I don't want people coming in my home anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a good idea. And then things just very easily started to flow from that time period to where we are right now.
So, I mean, do you think sometimes when people have traumatic head injuries, they have, these profound new skills afterwards. Do you think it had a result of that? Or was there like a rewiring of the brain? Or this was just like, hey, This is your time.
I feel like I feel like when I go, that's a very great question. I feel like many people have injuries, brain injury and things like that. They don't always have the same destiny. Do these things. I feel everybody has a capability to open up their brain activity because I teach right now and I love teaching. But I feel like when I look back at myself, my own path, I did come in with this destiny. When I was around, I think like 8 years old, I was called into the principal office for telling kids and people that I was reincarnated. And
wow.
nobody told me that word. And I would say, I remember a little boy holding my hand and he said, I don't want to hold your hand because it looks different. And I said, that's because I remember saying, I've been reincarnated. And he said, that's a word I don't like. Don't say that word. I'm telling the teachers. And I said, you could tell the teachers, but it's true. So anyway, and I'd get in trouble for that. And then I also did really weird things. Like I would say, come in the bathrooms, you guys, during recess. And they say, why? I say, I'm going to do healings on you guys. And they say, in the bathroom? I said, yes, and like not activate, but not that word, but I would say, we're going to do healing. So these are just weird, like things. And I was into crystals when I was little. I was into like just different things that no one was really showing me. But the one thing was my dad. My father was into telepathy. And my dad and I had a very unusually connected relationship, my real father. And he would help my brain activity because I was always as 11 years old. I'd say like 9, 10, 11, I would consistently say to him, I'm bored. I'm bored. And he'd say, what are you bored about? And I would say, kind of like what you were saying, Edgar Casey would, the interesting thing is I do mathematical stuff with my blinking and numbers. I'm very into numbers and blinking.
We'll get to that.
But I had a hard time in school with math, but not with doing telepathy in math. So like he would say, what number am I thinking? Or he would say, what color is that? And we would do that type of stuff with remote viewing and telepathy. But with algebra and geometry and stuff, I had a difficult time.
So, do you remember any past life stuff?
When I'm in channel, when I'm going in to remove like a tumor or doing psychic surgery, when I'm going in to do that, I do go out of body. I do find myself at Lourdes. I do find myself coming into the divine Christ light. I do find myself.
So can you tell people sort of what the difference between the 3D and the 5D is?
Yes. The third dimension is a very low density feeling. It's a very egoic energy. It's very me. It's very I, this, I, that. It's very self-serving. It's very, it's it's very boxed in. It's thinking everything in a very greedy, energetic vibration. The fifth dimension is very magical, spiritual, beyond a fourth. The fourth dimension is, they don't even have time for fourth dimension. Mm-hmm. The fifth dimension is a very expanded dimension where everything can be evolving, fast. The healing is amazing. If I told you how many people that get into that fifth dimensional expansion, you could be diagnosed today with something that is like an ulcer or GI tract issue or something pretty intense. And if you get into that fifth dimensional energy, and actually just going, well, I'm going to help serve somebody and help somebody out of my heart consciousness. Also, eating well is really important. Drinking good water. These are all things, living your best life with everything lined up. That's a fifth dimensional vibration. The fifth dimension is actually a reality. You can look at it as a dimensional based mathematical source, and you can also look at it as a spiritual source, the fifth dimension. I look at it more as a spiritual vibration because I lay hands and do healing that way. But it also has to be a whole pathway of living when you dedicate your life. So I have been doing meditation for 9 years daily. I don't miss a day of meditation, but I don't miss a day of exercising, eating well, and being kind to people and serving people.
Yeah. I mean, fifth dimension is really unity consciousness.
It is unity consciousness, but it's also, yes, absolutely.
I mean, it's unity with the one, not just people. And when you are unified with the one, which you are, we could say a fractal of, you are an aspect of God, then you have more power sort of from beyond this dimension to affect this dimension.
I love that. Inviting source, yes, into your life and into a daily pathway of living. That's what I'm trying to say. So inviting a daily pathway of living. So basically like, okay, I'm inviting source into my life 100% and into the relationships. So making a list of relationships that actually are good for you too. And even relationships that are not good for you, you can actually help them too. But also, it's a whole pathway of living too, the fifth dimension.
Yeah.
So examples of like when I go out and I do an event or something and I find somebody in the room that has maybe something that's like this big or something on their neck and they want it healed. So I lay hands on it and the whole room's in this unity of higher consciousness and they're all oming and it comes off, right? And that woman has accepted the fifth dimension. Because it came off of her. But now, how does she keep it off?
Are you asking me?
Yeah. I'm saying like to everybody, like, how do you keep that off? How do you keep that negative energy off?
You have to stay in that higher state of being. You have to stay connected to source.
That's like you just said. Yeah. But also staying connected to source, but also everything else around us. Like, okay, so the water faucet right now, if it didn't have a filter on it, would be 3D.
Yeah.
If I put a filter on it, it's fifth dimension.
Mm-hmm.
There's, like if you're holding a glass, like this is more fifth dimensional because it's glass. If it was a plastic container, it would be more third dimensional. So people have to understand our world right now is very 3D. We are moving right now into a fifth, which I'm excited about. I'm getting tingles.
Yeah.
We're moving into a fifth dimensional vibration. We are moving into awakening.
So it's really up to each individual to raise their consciousness to that. And then as a side effect of that, you affect the collective consciousness, which in turn affects the individual. So it's kind of this growing wave.
Brilliant.
So one other thing, so fifth dimensional consciousness is a state of being. Would that be fair to say?
Yes. And what you're saying, the guides love, because what we're getting off that is ride the awakening wave, which is we all have to ride this wave so we can help this awakening, which is going to happen.
It can't be stopped now.
No, we're depopulating the 3D fast. And we're awakening this wave. I just heard we're awakening this wave. I'd say they're blinking. They're saying, I'd say by 2026, that's how fast that it's gaining its rhythm.
I believe that. And that's good timing for my book to come out, which is all about this stuff. I mean, the wave is the mechanism for the transference of energy throughout the universe. And when you move into this elevated state, you are actually sending kind of this shockwave, that's not the right, but a wave out from your heart, which produces the most magnetic field of the body. So just by being in an elevated state, you affect the people around you.
Absolutely. And also with me, like the guides love to do like this flow chart, like the 1 to 5 flow chart. It's a frequency, like the frequencies of us, we help gain our gratitude. And when you're in a higher state of gratitude, like someone would ask me, what state of gratitude do your guides feel I'm in? And when we're in a 3 or we're in a 4, that's great. When we're in the 5 state of gratitude, the 1 to 5 flow chart, 5, you should see how much happens for you.
Oh, it's
amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, and when we say things happening, it's serendipity, it's synchronicity, it's being at the right place at the right time. It's the right people showing up for what you need. I mean, I'm experiencing it at an accelerated rate. That's just profound. I mean, it's something that I've always known about. And this is what I've been writing about since I was 17. Like when I was like 17, 18, 19, I was writing that like in my journals, like the next revolution is going to be a spiritual revolution, because we've gone out, we've explored the external world, and the next frontier is the internal world. And I think it's amazing. Like in the last couple of years, people who I never thought would be into meditation or anything like that are suddenly asking me like, how do you meditate? Why do you do it? And then all of a sudden they've got their own little practice. And, the gratitude thing, Dr. Joe Dispenza says, gratitude is the ultimate state of receivership. And when my mom passed away in 2010, I was completely lost. And I was like, what am I doing? It was like the rug was swept out from under me. And this kind of medium person told me to start doing this gratitude intention journal. And she's like, write down 5 things you're grateful for and 5 things you want to create. And you're going to find that the things you create today are going to be the things you're grateful for in the future. And I'm like, I'll do anything at this point. I'm like, I was desperate. And, every morning I sit down and do this exercise, and it's like I've Pavlovian trained myself into gratitude. When I sit down, it's just like, my heart's just like lit up. And then the goal obviously is to maintain that state throughout the day. So what are some ways that people can maintain that state of gratitude and creatorship throughout the day?
Yeah, I love that. I feel like staying in gratitude and feeling the gratitude, I feel that it takes practice, because it's feeling that I like to stay in that higher dimension. And I feel like what you do is, for me and for some of the clients that I work with, I feel it's like I feel like it's being in service.
Yes.
Keeps me in gratitude. And also feeling that it's like when I feel like I'm doing something for someone else, it just feels really good. And I feel like I've done something without wanting anything in return either. I feel like I want to do something for someone without wanting to get anything back for that person too.
That's a state of wholeness.
Yes, that's a mark of a true Messiah also. And that's getting you out of 3D to keep doing that and having a rhythm of that. So for what I do and I talk about is writing out. I love the writing out the gratefuls. Is I write out every night before I go to bed what I'm going to do the next day, for sure, of giving something of service. And then I also have, every month I have my class I put together that I do of service for people. And I run a clinic in LA where I do that. So I always make sure I have something that I'm doing constantly to keep me in that 5D, because there's so many dimensions. And when we're moving in the next few years, because we got to look at 2035, because 2035 is a big time for us. It's going to explode. And when we're looking at that, we're looking at an expansive decade ahead of us. And it's an exciting time.
Yeah. So why 2035? What happens in 2035?
Well, I think that's a decade where it's going to be more of this happening, more selfless and serving others, which will be an expansive time of just pure love.
Yeah.
My guides are saying. So me channeling. So like you said about the Casey thing, I have historically done a little bit of this where I have gotten hits on hurricanes and fires and stuff like that, where I've known things are happening. So this is one of my hits, is 2035.
Amazing. Yeah. When I was younger and I wanted to be a writer so bad, I started asking to, like, saying the prayer of St. Francis, starting to ask to be used as an instrument of peace. I didn't even know why I was saying this. And, and then, you start adulting and you're trying to make a living and you're having fun and you're partying and stuff like that. And then around like 35, I was like, oh my God, I used to say that. And so I started doing it again. And that's when I linked up with Dr. Joe Dispenza. And that's kind of started my, mission or whatever. But I always knew from a young age, it was like, even though at the human level, I was so full of doubt and fear and imposter syndrome, like I knew at the soul level that, my mission was kind of as a writer to help with this awakening. And that's what I get to do every day. I get to just think about it and articulate it for other people. Yes. And that is my service to the world. And I mean, I love it too. Like I wake up in the morning, I can't wait to sit down and write. Like I hate when I have to like answer emails and do all this admin shit. I'm like, I just want to sit down and write.
You are an amazing writer, and you're just the guides. The guides always say, like, I don't want to go into a reading right now, but the guides always give you like a 7 and a 2, which I'm into the soul frequency readings right now. Of course.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
I can't stop it. That's me. I'm the psychic and the healer girl, but you are the 7 and the 2, which is you were born that spiritual being. You're so talented and spiritual, and you thrive on that, getting that message out. And you were just, when you came in the world, you were already chosen. You're like one of the chosen. I mean, like, you're like, oh God, you are one of the significant beings here to bring the message to the world. So that's why you feel that. You feel more comfortable when you are in action.
Yeah. I mean, and so, let me ask you if this is how you feel when you're doing your thing. But like when I'm writing and I have a good day of writing, sometimes I don't really even remember what I wrote, but I was like, that felt really good. I wrote something profound today. And it's like the best feeling because I'm gone and there's just this energy coming through. And most of the time I'm just kind of listening to a voice and I know not to stop it or judge it, because the moment you judge it, it's like turning off that faucet. So there's like this stream of energy coming through you. Is that what you kind of experience when you're in a healing?
Yes, I do when I'm writing and when I'm doing my scanning, when I scan people, and when I'm doing the healing, I'm completely gone. I'm not, I'm not aware.
You're not Kimberly.
No. And actually, that's funny you said Kimberly, because somebody asked me today, is that your name? And no, they go, no, I'm not Kimberly. They go, because my eyes do the blinking. One eye says yes, the other says no. And then, of course, I channel lots of other spirit guides. But no, I'm not Kimberly. No.
You are. Kimberly is the personality. You are the soul and the spirit.
Yeah.
Bringing this through.
Yes, yes, Timmy. No, but the guide is no.
Yeah.
I'm not doing the work now.
So let's talk about your evolution. Speak from the blinking and everything, which you still do, but now you're doing this sort of number coding and all that stuff. How did that come through? And I might be wrong here, but does this have something to do with your mother and the infinity symbol?
It started that way, yes. Yes.
Tell
So
us about that.
Yeah, it started that way. Yes. Thank you. Okay. So I am known as a medical intuitive psychic. So the medical intuitive is what I do. And then I also get messages from the afterlife. But what happened is in what year was it? COVID hit 2020.
2020.
Okay. So in 2020, so it's been going on for a few years now. I was in a very big group online, and a lot of people were suffering and dying. And there was a massive hit that happened to me. I all of a sudden was going through the room, and I was sort of like on Clubhouse, but I could see everybody. And I was drawn to a woman that had COVID, and her mother came through. I think her name was Mary. And I heard a whisper in my ear. And all of a sudden, through Mary, her mother, who had a very tumultuous situation with her daughter, wanted to make contact. I'm getting chills. Wanted to make contact with her daughter to heal the relationship because they had a very hard relationship. And the woman was going to have cardiac arrest. And I knew it, but the woman that I was doing the reading on did not know. Her husband was a police detective, very skeptic of readers. And I also knew she had a bad knee. She said to me in this reading, she goes, "There's nothing wrong with my heart." And I said, "I'm hearing your mom is here." She goes, "Oh yeah, my mom and I had a horrible relationship." I said, "Your mom is here and she wants to make up with you. And she's telling me you need to get your heart checked." She goes, "There's nothing wrong with my heart." She kept saying that. Then I saw an 8 over her head, the symbol of the infinity sign. And I was like, I just couldn't believe it. I was like, at the same time, I've never really had done family members coming through, which was really bizarre. And I heard the woman whisper to me. I said, "Is your mom Mary?" And she goes, "Yes." I said, "Your mom is making contact and saying she's sorry for your relationship problem." At the same time, I saw the 8. Then I said, "Is that you, Mom?" And my eyes blinked, yes. So I knew I'd make contact with my mom and this woman's mom at the same time. Then I started looking through the room and started seeing other 8s showing up over people. And I look over another lady and I said, "I have a relative for you here." And she goes, "Yes." And then I said, and it was a man this time. I said, "Did your father pass away?" She goes, "Yes." And then it was her father that came through. So then I was making connections with my mom, bringing in people from the afterlife with the 8. Now the 8 is signifying soulmates also that are coming in with 8s. So then I started making contact with my mom. Now, the reason why the 8 is really significant is because my mom and I had a very difficult life here on this earth. My mom died young. She and I had a really tough time. She came back now, which is unbelievable, to help people resolve issues with their afterlife partners, which could be family members and also soulmates here. And when my mom passed away, it was very sad because it was a very
There's a lot of unresolved stuff.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Very unresolved. And wow, it's shaking right now in here. She was buried in a situation, it was right near Michael Jackson where he's buried. Anyway, I don't want people to go there, but anyway, make a long story short, there was an argument about what would go on the tombstone. And I was young and I cried and I was very emotional about it. And I was psychic then. And I didn't know how psychic I was as a little girl. And I said, I don't know why. I said, I want the 8 infinity sign on there, Grandma. And she said, being Italian, no, you're not having that. And I said, Mommy's going to come. Okay, this is very, I know, weird. I said, Mommy's going to come back. Mommy will come back. And being Italian that way, that, no, that's not happening.
Yeah.
I said, Mommy will come back. Mommy will come back. And I got my way, and they put it's on her tombstone right now, the infinity sign. And she came back. That's
incredible. It's like a precognition to what would become, your.
And I have one more thing to say about it.
What's that?
They let me write the poem that's on her tombstone.
Beautiful.
And anyway, and yeah.
It's so funny. I have so many questions for you, so we're going to have to do this again. But one thing I wanted, you just said something about soulmates, and one of my question was, what's the difference between karmic soulmates, kindred spirits, and twin flames?
Yeah, so the 8 does show up also coming in with those 8. So the karmic soulmate is sent from, I feel that you've known each other in past lives again, and it's sort of destined through God, the karmic soulmate, I feel. Twin flame, I don't know if the twin flame always is meant to be your soulmate in this life forever. I'm not quite sure.
But they're like a catalyst, right? And sometimes it could be very painful to encounter a twin flame. There's like love and passion, but it's like these two, two magnets coming together that are the same, like a negative and a negative charge. They just are like, they're always kind of not hitting. So what is the purpose of them in our life?
When I do a reading, sometimes I'll get 2 8s with someone lined up, meaning if you have 2 8s in a soul frequency reading with me, that is really great, because that means you're a friend and you are a lover and romantic with the person. Meaning when I do a reading with someone's past life frequency numbers, I'm like, oh my God, you guys are going to be great together, because that means you're also very meant karmically to be together, and you're also your friends. Sometimes people don't even have 1 8 together, meaning it's just not going to be. They're just meant to hang out. Yeah.
Or so many people get together out of fear of being alone or settling or something. Exactly. Or not. They settle as opposed to continuing on their karmic path.
Exactly. So I do a lot of soul frequency numbers that go up to just the 10 years. They stop at 2035. And then I'll do readings. Someone will say, I'm dating this guy. Can you do a soul frequency reading for us? And I'll do a path numbers of readings, and no 8s will come up at all. And then I'll do a reading on their partner, and I'll find out who they are. They'll say, can you do a reading on this one person for me? And those frequency numbers that come in, they're so spot on from the Elohim. Mm-hmm. And I'll know exactly.
What is the Elohim?
God.
Okay. Just another name.
A group. The Elohim are specific. The Elohim is a specific source of the energy of God, though. It does have a different vibration.
Interesting. Yeah. So what would you say to somebody who's struggling to move forward, who has lost someone in their life?
If grief-wise, like if they're going through grief.
Yeah, like they can't let go of that grief.
Yeah. I feel that not being alone, reaching out for community, going into always, it's really great to reach out to somebody like me or other people that help people connect to the afterlife is really good. I feel like understanding that people that have crossed over are not gone, that they're still here with us.
I think for like, atheist or something like that, they just can't wrap their head around that because they're stuck in the 3D, they're stuck in the materialism paradigm. So how do you shake somebody out of that? I mean, obviously, if you get a direct message that's like, your mom said, put your underwear away or something.
Yeah. People that are atheists or people that are stuck in grief, I feel that there's always an understanding that you can still reach out to community. You still can reach out to your current family. You still can reach out. It's not good to be alone. It's not good to be by yourself. Grief and sadness. For me, I know grief very well. I lost my mom and my dad and my little brother at a very young age. And one of my family members she does not believe at all. And
why do you think that is? Like, are they just so afraid to be let down?
Everybody has, I personally don't like people that tell me to believe in anything. Yeah. I don't like people to tell me who to love. I don't like people to tell me who to believe in. I believe that you have a right to you have a right to love who you want to love.
Yeah.
And you have a right to believe in what you want to believe. And I believe that seeing is believing. Like me talking about that I lay hands and I heal, not Kimberly, the guides do.
Yeah.
And that there is a fifth dimension, there is a Holy Spirit, that there is an omnipresent. But if you don't believe, that's fine. But what's important is that there is hope and that there are people that do care and that there is a loving energy here for people and that we don't want to be alone right now. That's what I'm saying. We want to have community and we want to have a friend that cares.
Yeah. I mean, this whole life in this human experience is about experiential discoveries. So you can know intellectually what love is, but you can't know love is until you experience it in your heart.
That's right, Timmy. And that's why I come from a place, my guides come from a place where love and time is an illusion. Like everything is like, it's all accepted as one energy.
Yeah. I mean, all of that is outside of time and space, which is a perceived construct and limitation of the third dimension. So, tell me this. Why is awakening the divine feminine on the planet so important? And what is that?
Well, it's interesting because just the other day, instead of saying Christ consciousness, I was saying divine consciousness. I start saying, I feel like the divine feminine is very attractive. And I think also in men and women, because I feel like a man and a woman are more attractive when they can be emotionally available. And I feel that there used to be a time when men and women were so attractive when they had this edge or this masculine energy to them. But I feel men and women are so attractive when they're raw and emotional and tender. And I just feel that the world needs to be a little kinder and sweeter.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is a dimension of polarity. It takes the masculine and the feminine to create, to procreate. But it's like for hundreds or thousands of years, we've been in this masculine energy mindset, which has led to war and destruction. And I think the masculine and feminine, that our role is to balance that within ourselves, because that is health, that is homeostasis, that is peace. So, and I think that if we had more women in leadership, maybe except Hillary Clinton or something like that. I went there. But if we had more women in leadership, we would have a more balanced world. We would not be, exploiting the earth and, doing all these terrible things. So what would you say your ultimate mission is here on this earth?
I feel like my guide's mission is to help people to experience an understanding of a sense of calmness, peace, security, less struggle, awakening their health in a consciousness of going back to probably more of where we began. I keep hearing on all levels, the organic, I think more, the organic lifestyle, family. I feel that's going to happen anyway. I think the guides are just here. My guides are here just to help that move forward. Also, I feel I'm here to help people awaken their brain in a higher level state of consciousness too, which I do the teaching a little bit already now. And I think I'll probably proceed to do more of that in the future.
Yeah.
Hopefully. And I feel that I don't want people not to be afraid to do that, to people to feel that it can be an easy process for you, to not be afraid of your own intelligence that you do have, and you can use it, and it's easier than you think.
So let's see, if you could leave behind one message for future generations about consciousness and healing, what would that be?
Consciousness and healing, I feel, is magical. Everybody deserves to be healed in this lifetime. Everybody deserves to have a miracle. Everybody deserves to accept that they're a miracle, that you're here in this world and this planet right now. And every day is a miracle that we're not below the earth.
Yeah.
And get up and go. Every morning we have a shot to make a difference in this life, and you can do it too. Everybody here has a chance to say something and do something terrific.
Yeah. I mean, I think miracles, we just don't really have alternative language for it, but miracles are the natural state of being when you
That's
are
right.
living in unity consciousness, when you're living in 5D consciousness. When things happen out of nowhere or a healing happens spontaneously, we call it a miracle. But that is just our natural state of being, which is wholeness. And we have to return to that. And I think, part of our generation, these people who are coming in right now, our job is to heal the generational trauma. And I was kind of talking to you a week or two ago, like, I almost think that is an aspect of what we might call original sin. It's like, original sin, it's like, we're born and God would be like, okay, you sinned because you were born. No, I think that weight is this compounded generational trauma that has happened over centuries, millennia, who knows how long. But our job, your job, is to heal ourselves. And this is how we stop that transmission of generational trauma. And then who knows what the hell that looks like in 2035, right?
Exactly. I mean, I think you're spot on. I think by 2035, it'll be just like right now. People say, oh, I have cancer, is like drinking water. In 2035. Oh, I had a miracle today, I'm healed. It'll be so easy and fluid and amazing that people can be healed just instantly. And that's my life, where I'm in the fifth dimension, where people email me and say, I'm healed, but that'll be more 2035, which would be so exciting and lovely.
Why do your readings only go to 2035, do you think?
I'm not sure. I don't question the guides, but they just won't go past that date right now.
Yeah. Let's see. Anything else you want to leave people with before we depart? I have so many questions. We're going to have to do this again because I barely even touched them. Look at this. I have all these questions here. But anyway, this happens every single time. I have all these questions, but I let the conversation take its course. So what would you like to leave people with?
I'm just really excited about people getting in touch with the book I have now. If they haven't picked it up, it's The Awakening to the Fifth Dimension.
Mm-hmm.
And you can pick it up on my website, thehealingtrilogy.com.
Or Amazon or anywhere you get books, Barnes & Noble.
Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah, Amazon. Yeah, that's probably. And I'm just really honored to be on your podcast today.
Well, the honor and pleasure is mine. I guess we'll have to do it again because I have so many more deeper questions about how you receive information and the process and all that stuff. But where can people find you?
I'm at thehealingtrilogy.com.
Okay. And social media, is that the same thing?
Yes. And also social media, my Instagram account is Kimberly Meredith. And I'm on TikTok and under Kimberly Meredith. And I'm on X also.
And you have a radio show?
And I have a radio show called the Medical Intuitive Miracle Show. We've been on for almost 9 years now. And
they find that on iHeartRadio?
That's on BBS Radio now and Mind Body Spirit FM. And I'm also have a YouTube channel called Kimberly Meredith Channels the Holy Spirit. Amazing.
Well, thank you so much for your time. This was super fun, and I'm sure these words are going to land on the right people who need to hear it. So until we do this again, folks, thanks for tuning in. Subscribe to YouTube, my Instagram, my newsletter. My website's therealtimshields.com. Starting to do like a whole rebrand thing, and then I'll get some newsletters out about all the people who are going to be on the podcast and stuff. So expect more of these amazing conversations. Kimberly, thank you so much. Until we meet again in the 3D or the 5D.